All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our live stream coverage of the much anticipated Tour Championship. Today, we will dive into all the action and anticipation surrounding this prestigious tournament. Plus, stay tuned until the end as we discuss our top captain's picks for the Ryder Cup. What sets the Tour Championship apart is its unique challenges. Usually, it's not a battlefield for crazy low scores, and what's even more intriguing are the two par fives that stand out as some of the easiest on the entire tour. So as we gear up for the championship rounds, we're keeping a keen eye on the unexpected weather conditions. Brace yourselves for some scorching heat and minimal winds. They will add an extra layer of complexity to the players' strategies. And speaking of players, let's not forget the remarkable feat of Rory McIlroy, who has triumphed 3 times in the last 7 years. Let's begin with some betting advice from our experts. We have Len, Ryan, and Kevin here today. Hey, guys. My first question is, how far back is too far with starting strokes? And what are some odds that also stand out to you? Len, can you kick us off?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a whole different strategy than we normally have. This week is different from every other week. Scotty Scheffler starts at 10 under. The bottom 5 guys start at even par, and that seems insurmountable, if not unfair. But, we have seen, and I have to give credit to my friend Jeff Ulrich over at DraftKings, who pointed out that a golfer who started at 2 under has finished in the top 5 every year that they've had this format, the past 4 years. Now, when you think about it, that sounds crazy, but 2 under is only 3 shots from a top 5. 5 under starting stroke is 5th place. So to 2 under, it seems very doable. However, a 1 under has never done it before. So I'd like everybody to just keep an open mind and think that the impossible isn't that impossible.
All right. All right. Who wants to go next? Ryan, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of it honestly depends on just, how well those top 3 get going out of the gates. If Scotty Scheffler posts a 64 on round 1, he gets to 16 under and he there could be 2 or 3 guys within 8 or 9 shots of the lead at that point, and then it really just seems unfair. But if those top 3 seeds, if they get off to kind of a slow start, if they're even 1 under, you get, there'll be scores out there for, a lot of the guys at the back that really don't have a lot to lose to go up there and try to get it. So, there's just, I just really think it's a lot dependent on how the first day gets going. I mean, you look at last year, Rory McIlroy started at 4 under. Quadruple bogeys the first hole, so he's 10 back immediately, and he ends up winning it. It's really hard to tell, I think.
That's Rory for you. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to get caught up in those starting strokes, but as a lot of things have been mentioned already, it's not impossible by any means to overcome them. So I think, for our purposes, it's certainly imposing when you're trying to make the best picks, but also it's important to not get too caught up in that. And we have to remember that these guys are playing for $18 million. So this is even more pressure perhaps than there is at a major. Maybe that's sacrilegious, but also it's just the way it is.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, I think the odds are really good for some of those guys, and we'll see what happens. It's great analysis. So let's kind of shift our focus from some of the established contenders to some sleeper picks that could potentially steal the spotlight. I would like to hear about some under-the-radar players who could finish maybe in the top 5, maybe top 10 for this year. What do you think, Len?
Yeah, some of these odds are crazy short odds. Scotty Scheffler plus 130 on DraftKings right now. Rory McIlroy plus 330. Victor Hovland plus 500. We were talking about the top 3 guys. I mean, I think those odds are correct. It just doesn't seem to be any advantage to playing them. So I wouldn't even start there. I would start at 2,800 plus 28 with Max Homa and Xander Schauffele. And last night Xander Schauffele was at plus 3,000. So people are betting him up a little bit. Xander Schauffele has been fantastic in this tournament through the years. A couple of wins. And Homa playing very well now. But you asked about sleepers moving down a little bit. A guy I'm looking at is Sung Jae Im, who would not be talking about a month ago because he was playing very poorly throughout the spring and the summer. But he righted himself at the Wyndham Championship. He had a top 14 there, or 14th place. And then he had top 10s in the first 2 playoff events. He is 9-1 on DraftKings, and he is still pretty good odds to finish in the top 5. And he starts at 2 under, like I was saying, only 3 shots from a top 5 at the start. So I do like him a lot there. And Russell Henley is also in that category. He's a little bit shorter odds than Sung Jae Im, but he's good play for a top 5. And even going all the way down to even, and Tyrrell Hatton, who starts 10 strokes back, you can still get plus 360 on a top 10 for him there. And he's only 4 shots from a top 10 right now, or 5 shots from a top 10 right now. Four shots.
All right, Ryan, any more odds for you that you're looking at, or sleeper picks as well?
Yeah, I really liked Homa as well. He obviously got off to a super good start to the season, won a couple times, and then just fell off in the summer months. But he's sort of getting it back, and you look at his last 5 finishes: T21, T12, T10, T6, T5, maybe T3, T2, maybe a win. Who knows? So I really like Homa for a top 5. He's 1 shot out of that right now at plus 300. And he's driving it really well now. He's gaining 0.84 strokes off the tee over those last 5 events. That would rank him 5th on the season. And he was T5 at East Lake last year. So I really like Homa. Also like Russell Henley for a top 10 at plus 165. It's been a few years since he's been at East Lake, but he was T3 the last time. He's been T2, T6, T8 the last 3 weeks. So, and he's gained 15 straight events from tee to green. So obviously hits the ball great, and likes Bermuda green. So those would be the 2 that I would bet this week.
Kevin, anyone for you?
Yeah, well, I'm backing Landon Schauffele too. If you want to get in on him, it's probably best to do it as soon as you can. I wouldn't be surprised if that number kept going down even further. He's played here 6 times. He's never finished worse than T7. And at 28-1, you're still getting a pretty good return, on whatever kind of bet you make there. Last time we did this preview, I noted Jon Rahm. I'm going to go right back to him here too. 8-1 clearly is pretty short, but he's just people have been loving to forget about him, in recent weeks. And like I said last time, it was only a few months ago, everyone was sure he was the best golfer, and that's not too long of a time for him to just come here and find it, once more before the season ends. And I guess moving down the list a little bit, this is another event where it feels like I want to go with guys I'm going to trust, or at least have a certain level of trust in. Tony Finau, been just lost lately, but he can easily sneak his way into the top 5, top 10. He's going to get 4 rounds. He's racked up a number of good finishes here. He knows his way around. And then lastly, just hovering way down there near the bottom is Jordan Spieth. And we may have certain levels of trust in Jordan Spieth. We clearly all don't have the same one. He's not what he used to be, but he's still Spieth. And that's a guy, when I'm looking way down the board, especially if you're getting, 150-1, that's going to be a tough ask. but we're only going 14 for a top 10 or top 5, excuse me. That's one I've got my eye on.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to speculate about potential players who could defy the odds. I will say I had John Rahm in my DFS lineup last week. It didn't really go so well for me, but most other weeks it'd be just fine. So I think overall he's a great pick. And Spieth, it was tough to watch him bogey those last 2 holes last week as well. So, but it's Spieth, like you said, lots of potential there. But let's pivot our attention from player predictions to a different kind of strategy, one that has all of us golf fans on the edge of our seats, and that is DFS, which will be a little bit different this week. Len, can you give us the lowdown on how DFS is going to work this week with starting strokes, and then also the best way to build a lineup?
Yeah, the DraftKings, I think them all, they're exactly the same in their scoring. The birdies still count for the same points, and bogeys and pars and all of that. And the bonus points, well, the DraftKings, I know, conforms specifically, follows the PGA Tour's lead. Whoever wins the tournament under the PGA Tour's landscape gets the 30-point bonus for winning in DraftKings, and 20 points and 18 points and so on down the leaderboard. So what you will see on TV is basically mirrors the way the DraftKings games will go. Now, what I like to do is look at each tier and find value in each tier. And the prices are really unlike anything we've seen, because we see guys who are higher up on the leaderboard, lower than guys lower on the leaderboard and stuff. So you really have to look at each tier and ask yourself some questions. And for instance, in the first tier that we see at 4 under par, Max Homa 10,900, Brian Harman 9,500, $1,400 difference. They're both playing very well now. You have to ask yourself, can you get a better value for your buck playing Brian Harman and saving $1,400 for somewhere else? Down at 3 under, Xander Schauffele, we talked about him. He's great. He's 10,500, but he's also $2,200 more than Russell Henley, who we've also talked about. Even though I like Xander Schauffele better this week, I don't know if I like him $2,200 better than Russell Henley. I actually like them both. So things like that are things that I'm looking for to find bargains within each tier and build a lineup there. And, goes all the way down to $5,000 this week and all the way up to $13,004. So there's a lot of flexibility.
How about FanDuel, Ryan? Do you have any insight there?
Yeah, we sort of talked about this before DraftKings and FanDuel, similar but different. FanDuel, it tends to squeeze together a little bit more of the pricing. So you look at, Scotty Scheffler is at 13,000, Rory's at 12,800. They're not quite as far ahead as the rest of the field as you might see on DraftKings, but obviously, placement points are huge, and if you can get the winner, that's always awesome. There were a couple good values that I liked. I liked Hovland was at 12,000. He was 1,000 less than Scotty and only starting 2 shots back. Has been super consistent this year. That 61 he put up last week at the BMW in the final round to win was, you could make a good case that might have been the best round we've seen all year, especially on that back nine with the 28. He was just stuffing every single approach shot, and you're gonna have to be great driving the ball on approach, and if you do those things at East Lake, you're gonna find yourself right there. So I think that's pretty good value for Hovland. Another one was Sungjae Im. It's hard to believe he's 25 years old. This is his 5th Tour Championship appearance. So obviously has a good feel for the course. Struggled a little bit a couple months ago, but he's trending again, T14, T6, 7th the last 3 weeks. And then Brian Harman was another one. He was down at 8,800 for a guy that's starting at -4. Recently won the Open. He's got 5 top 12s in his last 6 starts. Typically I'm not a big guy that enjoys the people that put up a bunch of their strokes gained through putting, but I mean, his putting has been unreal these last couple months, and at a certain point, he's putting up the results with those putting, even though some of the ball striking numbers aren't quite maybe what we want to see, but it's hard to argue with the results he's getting. So those are a few that I'm looking at this week.
Awesome. Any other DFS picks this week, you guys, or any other advice that you think people should know?
I really like that Hovland pick too. I think he's got the right temperament for this week. And, I mean, just the strides he's made in his short game are just so remarkable, and just needs one more to get it done. So appreciate the Hovland shout out there, Ryan. Let me give a shout out quick to Len and Ryan, our DFS experts. You can find Len's DraftKings article already posted on rotowire.com, and we will have Ryan's for you shortly this afternoon.
Yeah, those are always great articles. Lots of really good advice in there. So be sure to check those out, and we will post them on Twitter as well. So you can also find them there. Before we move into the Ryder Cup, I'm just curious, you guys, one person who's going to win. Everyone just state your pick for this week. Who's it going to be? Len, who do you think?
Roy McIlroy. He's 3 shots behind Scotty Scheffler. He was 6 behind Scotty Scheffler last year. Scotty Scheffler continued to have putting issues on the back nine. As great as Victor Hovland was at the BMW Championship, Scotty Scheffler could have putted a little better and still won. So don't have great faith in Scotty Scheffler, who was runner-up last year in the PGA Tour world, but in real life was finished in 13th place. Rory just plays this course well every year. He's got a 4-shot lead starting over Xander Schauffele, who also plays this course very well every year. Rory has finished top 10 9 straight weeks. It's sort of under the radar because it's Rory. It's like, yeah, but he's only won once. I think we hold him to a higher standard than anybody else, certainly in the majors and all, and that's well documented. But he's playing fantastic golf right now, and he's only 3 behind to start.
I agree with you, Len. I mean, I would go with Rory this week too. I mean, he's ready to go. I think he's locked in, and if anyone can do it, it's definitely him. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, well, I'm going to make it 3 for 3 so far. Rory's my pick as well. I think, I think why he plays so good around East Lake is that, it's got some of the narrowest fairways on tour. But you still have to hit driver a lot around this place because there's the Zoysia fairways, the balls just do not run out. They kind of just stop around where they hit. So you carry it a long ways and you're accurate, which Rory has been that for the majority of his career. Most people would call him probably the best driver of this generation. So, I mean, Len said he was 6 back of Scotty Scheffler to start, last year. He was also 6 back going into the final round of Scotty Scheffler. So, obviously he can make up a lot of ground. And, Scotty, like, he's almost, for me, sort of becoming the guy that's like, he's almost becoming what Tommy Fleetwood has been for his whole career, where like, oh, he's going to be close, but he's not going to win. And it's like, I don't know. It's just we've seen this for months and months and months that, you can hit it this well, but, the putter just, you got to putt well to win. That's just, it doesn't really matter how good you strike the ball. If you don't putt well enough, you're not going to win out here. So,
well, speaking of
my
putting,
thoughts.
Rory was coming up short on his putts quite a bit recent tournaments. So do you guys think he's kind of over that, or will that kind of keep plaguing him a bit more?
I mean,
yeah,
go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's been tinkering around with some different putters recently. So he said after his round at the BMW that he was going to go back to another putter to try it out. So I don't know how these guys just keep switching putters back and forth like that, man. Like I feel like I try that in my game, and it's You make a couple at like the Dick's Sporting Goods or the Golf Galaxy or whatever, and then you're like, oh, it's gonna be great, and then you get out on the course and you miss your first 4 foot of the day. So I don't know. It's just a confidence thing, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure he's had experience with plenty to the point where it doesn't matter as much, but still, that would be tough. So, Kevin, are you picking Rory too, or what do you think?
I am going to zag from you all. I might sound like a broken record here, but I've watched Scotty miss putts for months, and I've watched Rory miss putts for years. I love both those two guys, of course, but I'm going with Hovland. He's sitting right there. It's tough, to do 2 in a row in the playoffs. It's not impossible. Cantlay has done it, and I just think the whole package is going to be there for him. He's tuned up and getting that 18 million.
Wow, that would be a really great 2 weeks for him if he can pull that off. So, all right, there you have it. 3 for Rory, 1 for Victor. We'll see how it goes. Should we move on to the Ryder Cup?
Yes,
Do it.
let's do it.
All right, so this is the fun part. Obviously, we're eagerly awaiting the announcement of the captain's picks for this year's Ryder Cup. So let's talk about some of our picks that we think might happen for the U.S. team we'll focus on. We know this year's automatic qualifiers are Scotty Scheffler, Wyndham Clark, Brian Harman, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, and Xander Schauffele. So that leaves 6 spots. We're all in agreement, all 4 of us. We kind of talked about it beforehand. We all agree that Spieth and Ricky Fowler are going to get picked. And I think there's a pretty strong consensus between all of us about Colin Morikawa as well. 3 of us picked Brooks Koepka and Justin Thomas. So who else do you guys think might sneak in there? I was kind of thinking DJ has a chance, but who else might be in there?
Well, Thomas is interesting, Len. As we know, we've been discussing him a lot. I would say 3 out of 4 people probably wouldn't pick him. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I would pick him. I'm in the minority on Justin Thomas. And really, there are about maybe 10, 12 guys, depending how far you want to go back, that you could really make some sort of case that should be on the team. And you could kind of make a case against almost all of them that they shouldn't be on the team as well. So I don't know if this happens every Ryder Cup. Maybe it does, but it just seems this year is wilder and more wide open than ever before. Maybe because there are 6 picks. We haven't had that for too many years, but this is not the first time. I think with the core 6 that we already have, we have 3 rookies, Clark and Homa and Harman. And even though Harman isn't a kid, he's 35, 36 years old. He's a Ryder Cup rookie, and you never know what it's going to be. And so being new to Ryder Cup is a different animal. And then this one is on the road in Europe, where we haven't won. The United States, hasn't won in 30 years. And I think if your lineup, if your roster, if your team is too light in certain areas, you could get boat raced over there. The Europeans are really good, and they might be able to win under any circumstances. They are Rahm, Rory, and Victor Hovland are your 3 at the top, and they go 8 strong and maybe more. So I think Justin Thomas, even though he's playing poorly in stroke play, in the PGA Tour, it's not match play, it's not Ryder Cup, it's not Ryder Cup on the road. He's been a Ryder Cup stalwart for a number of years. He's one of only 5 guys who were really in consideration, leaving out Tiger and Phil, who've ever played Ryder Cup on the road. And I just think, and plus he's a great partner with Jordan Spieth. I'm sure I'm in the minority in terms of all of the golf world, but we'll see what Jack Johnson says a week from today, next Tuesday. They just announced he will be making that announcement next Tuesday with the 6 captains picks.
Yeah, I really just want his presence out there too, JT. We all know what happened the last few months, but this tournament isn't going to be played for another 5 weeks. And so give me the guy out there, that's gonna, come out and just, we're homers here, but try to stick it to the Europeans.
Yeah, I like JT too, and he definitely has a chance. We know he can do it. This could be his chance to turn things around. I think if he had the honor of playing on the team, he would definitely step into the challenge. So we'll see. Anybody else that has a chance that you guys think?
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to mention that I'm not sure is getting talked about enough is just the course fit. I think you look at what happened at Le Golf National in 2018. I mean, it was super narrow fairways, thick rough, and it just kind of exposed, a lot of the U.S. players. And I think Marco Simone, it's not going to be quite to that extent, but it's still going to be fairly tight fairways, a lot of penal fairway bunkers, thick rough. So it's, that's the thing about the Ryder Cup is, the host team gets to set up the course however they want, and it's going to look a lot different than Whistling Straits, which was completely wide open, super, that sort of American style golf that a lot of PGA Tour courses use now. So I think that just needs to be talked about a little bit more, because to me, I really like guys like that are going to keep it in the fairway, that are playing well right now. A couple of them, Lucas Glover, Russell Henley. They've the last month and a half, they've been playing some of their best golf in years. And in Glover's case, didn't play any of the majors this year, but has won twice. One of them was a playoff event. This new putter that he's found, man, has it just revitalized his career, because he's turned into, he's gaining strokes on the green instead of just giving them away time and time again. And as I mentioned earlier, Russell Henley just super, super consistent. But, I mean, it's tough to leave guys like JT or, we haven't even really talked about Brooks yet. He was one of the automatic qualifiers, but, he just got passed up at the BMW. What do you do with him? I mean, he hasn't done, he won the PGA, but since then, wasn't competitive at either of the other majors and hasn't played well at LIV in the last few starts either. So that's another guy you got to talk about, I think.
What are your guys' opinions on Dustin Johnson? I mean, last I checked, he was 8-1 to receive a captain's pick. He went 5-0 at the last Ryder Cup. So he has a little bit of a good track record there. Any chance he'll get picked?
There's just politics here, and there's no way around that. And he's with LIV, and there are probably a lot of people in the golf inner circle who are involved in this who don't want any LIV guys going. There may be an exception made for Brooks Koepka. I mean, he won the PGA. That used to get you onto the Ryder Cup team years ago. That would be an automatic qualification. And I think the players probably would like Dustin Johnson on the team. He seems to be well liked, but the others like Bryson DeChambeau, I don't think any of the players want him on the team, or Patrick Reed or anything like that. But I think the politics will just keep Dustin Johnson off the team. And there really will be probably an outcry from the players, from the PGA Tour players, if too many LIV guys get picked. Hey, what about me? I stayed. And they might accept one, and they like Brooks. And Brooks, even though he hasn't been fantastic in the Ryder Cup, like Justin Thomas has, but again, it's just all politics. I don't see it happening.
Okay, so you mentioned the PGA. I do have another question. Colin Morikawa, he really hasn't won in a while either, much like Justin Thomas, but I think his streak is much longer. I think his last victory came in 2020 at the PGA Championship. Any hesitations there for getting picked, or will that not matter?
I don't see it. I mean, I just think he's been, and this is what I was saying about, the European setup is, Morikawa is perfect for that. He's second in driving accuracy, second stroke gain approach this year. So he's the perfect type of player you want. He did. Him and Dustin Johnson, they made a great pair at the Ryder Cup last year. DJ went 5-0-0, and I think that's sort of why he's sort of on the borderline, maybe a talking point for a pick. But he hasn't really had the form this year, other than I think he was T10 at the U.S. Open. But other than that, it just he hasn't really done much. So yeah, I mean Morikawa. I mean, yeah, he hasn't won in a while, but he's been close a number of times, and I just think he's too consistent of a ball striker to leave him off the team.
Fair enough. Any other mentions here, guys, that we think people should know about?
I picked 6 guys that everybody else picked, so I don't have too much to stray from the crowd here.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's really going to come down to the last two. I think whether what I think or what any of us thinks, I think that the first four are pretty secure in Spieth and Morikawa and Ricky Fowler, who we haven't mentioned, and Brooks Koepka. I think those 4 are going to be there. And then the other 2 is where you have like 6 or 8 guys: Sam Burns, Tony Finau, Henley, Glover, Keegan Bradley, who we haven't mentioned. All of these guys are in the mix for those last 2 spots, I believe. And there's only one way for Zach Johnson to be right, and that's to win. If they lose the Cup, then his picks are wrong. It's terribly unfair, but that's the way sports and life works. Yeah.
Great life advice from Len. Thank you, Len.
Yeah. And it's weird too, because I remember last fall to the President's Cup, right? And there was a lot of talk about who the picks were going to be, and it was easy. It was like the easiest picks you could have ever made. It was literally, I think, like the top 12 and the point standings for the President's Cup were there, minus Zalatoris, who was hurt. But this year, yeah, it's like we've had a couple. We didn't expect Wyndham Clark to come out of nowhere, Brian Harman to get in the mix, and it's kind of the sort of downfall or struggles, I guess, this season of guys like Justin Thomas, Cameron Young, Sam Burns haven't been as good as they were last year. It sort of makes it a little bit more interesting than I think people thought before the season started. It's a lot. I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people would have thought between the 2 teams. So it'll just be interesting. And obviously the Tour Championship, as we were talking about earlier, this is the last start of week to say, hey, Zach Johnson, look at me, look what I did. So big week for sure.
Absolutely. Keep an eye out for another Ryder Cup article on rotowire.com shortly.
Yeah, and we will tweet our consensus picks as well. And yeah, look out for more content. Len will also be going live in about an hour or 90 minutes, right, Len? What time is
At
your next stream?
1:30 Eastern.
All right, so more golf content coming your way. Be on the
Keith
lookout.
Stewart of Read the Line, our weekly The RotoWire rundown. We'll be looking at the Tour Championship and the Ryder Cup.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's have a good Tour Championship, and I can't wait to see who the Ryder Cup picks are. See you next time.
All right.